Hello guys. In the previous classes we have discussed about the recruitment in detail. So the next procedure is about the selection. Now you have very clearly understood what is recruitment and how we can impress the candidates to apply for the jobs in our organizations. So that is about the recruitment. We have considered various examples and you have prepared the recruitment or is it advertisement also. So the next step is once we receive all the applications, the next process is about the selection. So this is what we are going to discuss today. So what is selection? Let us try to understand the meaning of this selection. Basically, selection is a process of choosing the most suitable person out of all applications. Now you might have received for one post or 10 posts several hundred applications. So how do you choose the best one? It involves some process, that's all. So there are series of steps that we need to follow in order to do the right selection. So we need to consider the matching qualification and experience of the candidate as per the job requirement. We see you have a job requirement for a particular qualification. So only those applications which match the required what is that the qualifications are only to be considered. Other applications will be rejected. And choose a right candidate who fits into the system. So wrong selection will simply create a wastage of time, effort, money, and not only that, it will spoil the environment of the organization. So right selection will help the organization in increasing the efficiency and productivity of the organization. We don't want the best. So today's caption is not hiring the best one, but hiring the right person. Sometimes a person may be the best, but his attitude and all other issues will be a problem. So instead of that, you hire the right person and then train him. He will be an asset to the organization. Now what is meant by the definition? Now you understood the meaning. So there are various definitions given by various people who are dealing with this process, HR professionals we can say. So selection is the process of differentiating between applicants in order to identify and hire those with greater likelihood of success on the jobs. Don't worry about the specific definition. Once you understand, that is sufficient. So out of so many applications, how do you select the best one? And that best person whom you have selected should match the requirement of the organization and he should be the best team player. This is what you need to understand. Now let us see the distinction between recruitment and selection. We have already discussed in detail about the recruitment. So what is recruitment? It is a process of searching for the prospective candidates and encouraging them to apply for the jobs in your organization. So that is recruitment. But when will the selection happen? Once you receive the applications, then it is a process of choosing the right candidate. That is selection. Then another difference here is recruitment is a positive process and selection is a negative process. So what is the difference here? Positive process means what? We are creating an awareness among large group of applicants so that they apply. So many applications we get. It's a positive process. Out of these so many applications, what we do? We try to eliminate one by one. Therefore, we call it as negative process. And also, recruitment aims to create a large pool of candidates in our database because we will be getting the applications, we store it in our computers, so it is a database permanently available for us. And in selection, it aims to identify and reject the unsuitable candidates. You may get 1,000 or 2,000 applications or 100, whatever it is, but all may not be suitable, right? So we need to choose the right person. That's what we are going to do in selection. And recruitment always precedes the selection. That means first comes recruitment, then comes the selection. So selection always succeeds recruitment. Then in recruitment, it does not result in a contract of service. See, you are only encouraging or motivating the people to apply for the job. There is no question of contract involved in it. It doesn't mean that everyone who applies will get a job. In selection, it's not like that. Once you identify the person and once you decide him to choose and make a final selection, it leads to a contract of services between the employer and the selected candidate. Because he has to, you'll be giving the offer letter, then he has to accept it. Everything happens in the writing. There is no oral business here. Okay. So recruitment involves in searching, whereas selection involves in comparison and choice. So these are the differences between recruitment and selection. Now let us see what are the steps involved in the selection process. This is very important for the examination point of view. So understand this very carefully. It's very simple. So first is about the preliminary interview. We call it as a screening interview. So what are we going to do in this section? So basic purpose is to eliminate the undesirable or unqualified candidates. As I told you, you may get 100 or 200, whatever number, but all may not be suitable. So in the first step itself, all the unsuitable or unqualified candidates have to be rejected, looking at their biodata or the CV what you are getting. So it is a sorting process in which the prospective candidates are given the necessary information about the nature of the job and the organization. So you have called for an interview, let us say. So this usually taken care by a junior level executive. So he will talk to the candidate, he will see the CV and the candidate's skills, education, experience, salary expected, all this will be analyzed there. And if the candidate is found to be suitable, he is selected for further screening. This need not be a physical type of interview also. It can happen over the phone, or now we have a Zoom or the Google Meet, or all these platforms can be utilized. It's a time saving. So this helps to determine whether it is worthwhile for a candidate to fill up the application form. Filling the application form is the next step. So only if the candidate deserves, only then we will go for the next step. Otherwise here itself it is eliminated. So this is a brief and generally carried out by a junior executive across the counter or at the reception office itself. It will not even come to the HR officer or HR manager. No, in the first level itself the screening will happen. But at the same time, even though it is done by a junior level, he has to be properly trained so that he doesn't reject the right candidate in a hurry, because so many applications will come. So by oversight, good candidate should not be missed out. So that care has to be taken by the executive who is doing this preliminary interview. Okay, so this is the first one. Second step is giving him the blank application. Every organization will have a format. So that format will be given and the candidate has to fill it. This is most traditional and widely used method for collecting information from the candidates. Candidate has given so many information, but for you to compare between the candidates, a standard format is always desirable. That we call as application blank. Okay, so the application form should provide all the information relevant to the selection, and it contains usually few aspects like identifying information such as name, address, telephone number, email, and all those details which helps us to identify the information. Second is about the personal information. It depends on the date of birth, age, then sex, then place of work, marital status, dependents, and all such type of activities. And that too, different organizations will have different application blanks. There is no standard procedure for this. Every company has a choice depending on the type of employment. They can create their own application blank. Then physical characteristics, what is his height or her height, weight, eyesight, all this depending on the type of job, because some cases eyesight is also very important. Then the family background, how many dependents are there, how many children, and all those will be mentioned in that. Then about the education, sometimes he may have only the basic academic education, sometimes he will have some other additional or professional related to technical or some certifications. So all those things comes under education. Then about the experience, what are the previous jobs that he has held, and who are his previous employers, what type of duties he has performed, and what is the salary drawn. So all those things will be under experience. Next, references. Every candidate is supposed to give at least 2 or 3 references. So these references could be either his previous employers or head of educational institutes where he has studied, or a public figure. All those things will come under references. Then miscellaneous, like extracurricular activities, hobbies, games, sports, and membership of some professional bodies. So all those things will come in miscellaneous. So all this information, and some are also, as I told you, depending on the type of company, they are free to ask some more informations, whether he belongs to a political party, all such type of activities they can ask, whether he is a member of the Lions Club or a Rotary Club or any other NGO. So all information, whatever you want, you are free to include in this miscellaneous. Okay. Then the third one is the selection test. Of course, there are different types of tests. We will be dealing in a separate chapter or a separate under separate section about the selection test. But here I am just mentioning about the steps involved in the selection process. So psychological tests are being conducted, and also written test can be conducted, like aptitude test, or it could be intelligent test, then reasoning test or personality test. So many types of tests. We'll be discussing all those types of tests in separate section. And this is very important to reduce the bias in selection by serving as a supplementary screening device. Now, here in these tests, everything is numerically assessed. So for every correct answer, some marks will be assigned. So there is no question of having, soft corner towards anyone in this step. So this is a very important step to maintain the transparency. Selection test plays a very important role. And this will be done if the number of applications are more. If only 2 or 3 applications come, then some organization may do, some may not do. Sometimes we may conduct tests in online mode also. It is so tech savvy. Now this pandemic has explored to do as online so many things, right? So all those techniques can be utilized to conduct the selection test. Fourth one is conducting employment interview. It is basically a one-to-one interaction between the interviewer and the candidate. So every selection procedure will have this interview. It could be sometimes 1 round of interview, it could be sometimes 2, sometimes it would be a separate HR round, separate technical round, or different levels of interviews depending on the nature of company they are free to conduct. And all the information gathered in the application blank or their CV, all those things can be verified and have a one-to-one interaction in order to know more details about what he has mentioned in the applications. Basically, a selection interview serves these 3 purposes. First one is to obtain information about the background, education, training, work history, and interest of the candidate. Everything he might have mentioned in the application, but here is just a clarification, talking one-to-one. Then giving information to the candidates about the company, the job, and the human resource policies. So all those things the manager or the interviewer needs to explain to the candidate, because after joining you should not feel you did not tell all this information in the beginning. So it is basically a rapport building and also establishing a friendly relationship between the employer and the candidate, so as to motivate the successful applicant to work for the organization. Motivation plays a very important role. So one-to-one interaction between the employer, directly employer if it is a small organization, otherwise if it is a larger setup, the HR team will take care of this. Then fifth one is about the medical examinations. Those candidates who have crossed all the previous stages will be sent for physical examination to an authorized medical officer. Some companies may do it, some may not do it. Again, I am telling you, it all depends. This entire selection process depends on the HR policy of the organization. So this medical examination will determine whether the candidate is physically fit to perform the job that he will be appointed. It reveals the disabilities which is already existing in him, and it provides a record of employee's health at the time of selection. So if this is not done, what will happen is once he joined, some injury might happen and he may claim that this happened after joining this workplace. Then there will be problem facing by the organization. They may have to give the compensation and all those things. So there is something called as Workmen Compensation Act, which claims for an injury. So the company needs to be very careful while appointing. Otherwise, the company will be liable to pay the compensation. So this medical examination also prevents the employment of people suffering from contagious diseases. Only by medical test we will come to know, otherwise we will not come to know, right? So this is very important. So it determines the candidates who are otherwise suitable but require specific jobs due to physically challenged, or it could be allergies. Candidate is very good, but he has some chemical allergy. So in such cases, if you want to choose him, you should not make him to work in a chemical area. It will be an allergy for him. So either you can reject if it is very much essential for him to work in such a situation, or if the candidate is good, if you feel that he can be put in some other departments, you don't want to leave the candidate because he is extremely good, but only problem is he has an allergy. So if you want, you can put him in some other department and manage, otherwise this will be eliminated here. Then sixth, reference checks. As I mentioned earlier, in the application blank, there will be provision for mentioning 2 or 3 references. It could be your previous employers or an head of educational institution where you have studied, where the candidate has studied, or any public figure. So their contact number, their email, their address, all details should be mentioned by the candidate only. See, sometimes you are only giving the references, that means the candidate. And candidate will tell, I have given your name as references. So if the call comes from the company, kindly speak positive. So sometimes that also will happen. The employers may not get the correct information, but still we do it. We do multiple reference checks and then only go for the selection. Then this will also, if the information given by the people are very transparent, then it will help us whether to choose him or not. They will mention about the character, they will mention about the attitude. So this will help us to make a final selection. And the last process is about the final approval. Now let us say the candidate is shortlisted by the HR department and approval is done by the top management. The next step is to send him the appointment letter mentioning the position offered and the salary structure, the joining date, and all other HR terms or the conditions in which he is supposed to work, who will be his reporting authority. So all this can be in detail mentioned in the offer letter or appointment letter. So appointment may be in general for 1 year or sometimes 6 months or sometimes 2 years, depends on the company policy again. So after satisfactory performance during his probation period, the candidate is finally confirmed in the job on permanent basis or regularized. So if his performance is not good, the employer may ask him to discontinue from the services, because it is very clearly mentioned in the appointment letter that his appointment will be for 6 months or 1 year as probation. So if the performance is not good, they may ask him to go. Otherwise, he will be made permanent. Okay, so these are the 7 steps involved in the selection process. Now, short answers can be asked from this topic as what is selection, and maybe a little bit lengthy questions can be asked about the explain the steps involved in the selection process. So you have to write in your own words. Don't by heart anything. Just understand the concepts clearly and do it. All right. So let us continue in the next video. So that's all from this video. So thank you very much.